Hello and welcome to the Observability Heroes. My name is Rainer and I'm going to talk about job number 2 in the world of observability. So the second most important job after performance troubleshooting that we need observability for. And that is, ta-ta, emergency debugging. So we talked about performance troubleshooting. So how does it differ? Emergency debugging sounds like the same thing. It is, and it is not. So emergency debugging happens if I'm thrown into something that I don't know anything about. Or let's say I'm surprised. I was not part of the whole troubleshooting process because I didn't get the alerts and I wasn't part of the triage. But in the triage, somebody found that, oh, it actually has to be in that team, this team, your team, my team. And then your task is to solve the problem. So you need to do the same steps as in performance troubleshooting. That means you diagnose, find the root cause, yay! But there are two things that are making it an emergency situation. That is, it happens under pressure. So somebody's sitting behind you and breathing down your neck, asking every half an hour, does it run again? Do we make money again? Are our customers happy again? That's not a very nice situation to be in. And that means you need information fast. If you don't have any observability in your system, you may get information, but you sure not get it fast. And this is where we need observability tools. So what's the general process that we have here, which is more or less the same in performance troubleshooting, is we create a hypothesis of what the problem could come from, what the root cause could be. And then we want to confirm it, or we want to discard it to get to the next hypothesis. And if we have confirmed it, yes, this is the root cause, this is the main source of our problems, we can go ahead and fix it. And of course, prove the fix. Just because it works when we restart it doesn't mean we fix the problem. So, and this is where, let's take a look at what we need. To create a hypothesis or a theory, we need to have a look at anomalies, times, errors, and check when and where something happened. That means we need log events, usually singular, that already tell us that something went wrong, that some error happened. But that's not enough. We need metrics as well to tell us about the performance of certain components. So log events are singular, they're standing for themselves, they're not connected. And it means it makes it hard to find out where the problem is and if this is a good starting point for our debugging process. Especially if your systems are not synchronized and we're talking about a 24/7 production system with probably lots of load, and milliseconds can be decisive for the actions that you take. So log events correlated by timestamps may work for you, but probably not as well as if you have the metrics that can prove at that time in this system something went wrong. And ideally, there are span events and tags. So the difference between log events and span events is not that big in terms of information they contain, but in terms of connections they contain. And traces and span events are much better. They contain tags and they make it easy to connect the dots and get the correlations. So those are the things that we need to actually start to create a hypothesis and also do the first confirmation or discarding. Let's put those aside and let's go to the next round of things that we actually need. That is the types of data that we want. That's logs events. Log events tell us if something is very likely to be the root cause or not, if we are following the right path. Then we can take a look at the code performance. This can be done with profiling or tracing or snapshotting, stack traces, something like that. And that tells us about if some specific component has a problem, or if you have the dependencies, who is depending on that component that has specific issues. We can do it the other way around. Depends on the type of problem that you have and of the type of correlation that you can create. When we can correlate the log events to code performance and then to dependencies, that's perfect. This is what tracing and the spans are all about. This is why tracing is so important for modern observability, because you get this correlation and that makes it much easier to estimate an impact of something or discard the theory that this component is responsible because it's not connected to all the others that have the error. Sometimes you have two errors at once. Then they're totally independent, but in logs, they show up at the same time. So your brain automatically correlates those to a causality, which is not necessarily true. 90% of the cases, you have one error at a time and everything's connected to that. The other 10%, you have two errors that are independent. And if you're mixing them up, if you don't have the information that will allow you to separate them, you will have a very long debugging process. So what's in there? What can we do to get this data, this type of data here? And well, let's put this aside and take a look at how do we get that. And that is using modern observability technologies. Let's make this a little bit bigger. We have log analytics. That's already a big step. If you have 10 log files, 10 distinct log files that are sitting at the same place, they're not correlated. They are just sitting there and you have to do it manually with an architectural diagram. Put it into a log analytics, put it into an Elasticsearch, OpenSearch or Splunk or Datadog, whatever. Just feed the logs in there and they will help you to digest them and search them. Much easier than going through the log files themselves. This is ideally accompanied by traces and spans from an observability solution. I explained already why that is important. It can connect the individual events to a string of events that finally gives you a really, really good explanation why something went wrong. Ideally, you have structured events. So the difference between logs and structured events is not that big. Logs are usually unstructured. And if you have structured events, structured logs, or spans, then you have already a big step towards readability and extracting information much quicker. And then it's augmented by metrics. The metrics will tell you what impact certain things had, if they're using more CPU with this code, if they're using more memory, especially if you have a database that you pull data from and the query will get you a lot of data. And if this is not discarded correctly, your memory will fill up and then everything else suffers probably. And then your Kubernetes goes crazy by assigning new pods to it or new nodes and trying to please everyone. Now all of that is happening quickly. This is why it's emergency debugging, and you see there are lots of components in here, but modern observability, especially observability around traces and structured events, will help you big time in emergency debugging, and you don't have to get up in the middle of the night, brew yourself 2 liters of coffee, or get your fine portafiller started up, because when, like ours here, the machine takes 20 minutes to heat up before you get coffee, with modern observability, in 20 minutes you're already done. And then you go back to your well-needed sleep. Yes, that's emergency debugging job number 2 on the list of priorities and observability tools. And that's it for today. Next topic is going to be alerting and monitoring. And it's going to be me who tells you that in the next video. My name is Rainer. Join me in Observability Heroes if you like to discuss anything of that. And with that, I say goodbye. See you next time.